Hello. This is a short recording of me reading the first story from my new book, Raising the Runes, A Shamanic Journey Through Avalon, by, funny enough, me. I'm not going to say too much about it. You can listen to the story, and if it grabs your interest, please feel free to buy a copy. If not, thank you for giving me the time to listen. And I'll start with story 1, which is called Goal on the Tour. And I was just struggling to find it, but give me a second. Here we go. Where do I begin this tale? I could ramble on about my life up to the time I discovered the runes, but that will be a distraction. Like most of the things in my life before I connected to spirit through working through the runes. I may mention the odd experience along the way, and of odd experiences I have had many, like the time. After planning it for 2 years, in January 2010, my wife Tara and I moved across the continent to live in Glastonbury, England. We opened a little shop in the Gauntlet, bang smack in the heart of the old town, and we called it the Crooked Woman. We were lucky to find a small but bright and airy flat, just yards from the shop. It had fabulous views of the high street on one side and the Gauntlet pathway on the other. Having very cosy quarters, we kept our windows wide open as we slept, and were greeted every 4 a.m. by the seductive aroma of bread baking by the bakers across the high street. It was at this time of day, as the bakers went about their business, that I would leave Tara fast asleep and head up the Tor to feed the ravens. The mornings are very special on the Tor. It is an ancient hill which was used to be an island surrounded by an inland lake, but the monks of the local abbey drained the waters centuries ago. This site has been the place of worship and pilgrimages for thousands of years, and is regarded by some as the heart chakra of the world. There is a magic in the air as the dawn breaks over the Somerset levels. The ancient hill looms out of the mists, not just any mists, but the mists of Avalon. That is the long-lost name of Glastonbury, the burial place of kings since time began, including King Arthur. The same 2 crows or ravens always greeted me as I ascended the 600-foot elevation each day. These birds were sort of halfway between the 2 species. You will find me calling them both names during this book. I fed them while I gave thanks to Odin and called in a blessing for each new day. As the weeks went by, I could feel the energy growing. My connection to the land was waking something inside me, a long-lost memory, an echo from the past. One day I was tending my business in our little shop, and a burly, earthy woman came in through the door. She was wearing a cowboy hat decorated with feathers, a heavy poncho draped over her shoulders, and she balanced her weight on an antler-tipped staff. We passed the normal courtesies, and then she asked me if I was the bloke who fed the ravens each morning on the Tor, and I told her I was. If possible, may I come with you tomorrow, she asked. I told her of course, as long as she was up early, as I was an early riser, and we arranged to meet at 6 a.m. The next morning we met at the corner of Wellhouse Lane, where the path to the Tor begins. The fog was as thick as pea soup, and we struggled to see each step as we headed up the Tor. It was going to be a long trek. There were hundreds of stairs, all at a very steep gradient. By the time we made the final turn on the approach to the summit, we were well above the mists, and the whole town lay hidden beneath a mystical, vapory blanket, as if we were walking on the clouds. Once at the top, I called to the crows. By now I had given them names. Hugwin was the bigger male, and his bride was Muna. Out of the carpet of white fog, the images of these birds appeared and landed near my feet. While I broke off pieces of bread for the birds and blessed the gods with each morsel offered, the woman spoke. I have not come here to feed the birds. I have come to show you something you need to see, to tell you something you need to know. With tears welling in her eyes, she said, "Can you see them there in the mist?" she asked, and she pointed down over the edge. Hovering and swirling in the fog were figures, ghosts if you like, hundreds of them. When I had seen a spirit in the past, only I had seen it. This was now to be changed here in Avalon. And this is not what I had expected. Definitely not what I had expected. I tried to focus on the horde that surrounded us. My friend found her voice again. You are descended of the lords who lived here. Your ancestors killed all those people, and you are directly responsible for their deaths. As I stared harder into the fog, one individual spirit came more into focus than the rest. A red-haired woman. I had seen this ghost many times in my life, in dreams, in nightmares. She had haunted me since my childhood. Follow her. She will show you. Then you will understand, and you can start your true work here. My walking partner beckoned me on over the edge. So I followed the apparition through the swirling mists and down the side of the tor. Now, to most sane people, this might sound completely nuts, or as we say in England, a load of bollocks. But to those of you who have the touch of the shaman about you, this is just the average day. The sides of the tor are extremely steep, and then some of the way down I was sliding on my arse. Better to have soggy strides than a broken neck, so I cautiously slid my way through the stingers and the thistles. Eventually the bank levelled out and the fog cleared. I could now see a well-beaten path laid out before me. The figure was maybe 6 yards ahead of me when I saw her come to an abrupt stop and stare out across the levels. I turned my face to whatever she was distracted by and was struck by a draught of deathly cold. The view I saw was from a long-lost nightmare, from when I was a child, 5 or maybe 6 years old. At that time, I woke screaming and repeatedly shouting, "I can't move my legs." My mother rushed to the bedroom and asked what the bloody hell is wrong. I replied, they, although I had not a clue who they were, had chopped my legs off. It took several hours for me to be able to move my legs. The doctor who was called explained he could find nothing wrong and assured my parents that all would be well. This horrific dream haunted me until I was about 16, because it was always exactly the same. Here is how it always played out. I was sitting mounted on a dark bay wide-backed horse with other riders assembled. It was a damp, cold morning, and the smell rising up from the wet sheepskin saddle made me want to gag. That same smell sickens me to this day. As a group, we spurred our horses and charged down the side of the hill and into a nearby encampment. I was immediately knocked from my horse by a mighty blow that hit me bang in the centre of my chest. Next thing I knew, I was tied to a tree and watched with horror as 2 angry men with utter hatred in their eyes hacked at my legs with broad-bladed axes. Then, as always, I woke screaming, sweating, and struggling to feel anything below the knee. Now, here, I was in real life on the misty tor, standing with a red-headed ghost, and that dream of myself from my childhood nightmares played again right in front of me. Then the female spirit spoke, not in words, but communicated her message within my mind. Her soft but direct voice filled my skull. Remember this, you have lived here before. You were killed down there, and your father and your brothers massacred everybody in revenge for your death. You were your father's favourite son. No amount of bloodshed could swell the pain of his loss. So now you are to rebalance the crimes of your clan, to heal and help all you can, to put things back in balance, to settle this debt. She then turned around to face the path ahead. The soft jingle of bells could be heard as a scruffy old man riding a caribou approached on that same path. He rode straight through her and onwards, passing by me. As I stepped aside, he turned his head to look directly at my face, smiled, and just continued on his way. He will be your teacher. His name is Gol. These were her final words. The ghost then turned and vanished back into the mist from whence she had came. This is how the knowledge of my ancestors now reveals itself to me. A spirit shaman named Gol comes to me in visions or dreams and shows me the ancient practice, the medicine of the runes, and how I must use it. I had used the runes for years, but only in Glastonbury did they take on a greater, more divine importance. I am willing to share my experiences to guide you, but you must allow the runes to take you on your own spiritual adventure. That's the end of the first story in my book, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to me tell it. If you're interested in the book, it's available on my website. If not, once again, I thank you for your time. Bless you all.